Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Thanks, Kimberly. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you will want to make sure that you actually go to iTunes and download and subscribe the Fast Leader Show if you haven't already, because today we have somebody who I've known for a very long time and I've looked up to for a long time, and is just one of those people that gives a unique perspective and insight on a lot of topics, and you're going to get to learn a little bit about what he's doing today coming up in the show. Jeff Furst was born in Freeport, Illinois, and was raised in Rockford with his younger sister. Jeff ultimately found his way to Northwestern University, where he earned a degree in economics. Following graduation, Jeff worked in commercial banking for American National Bank. After a couple years, Jeff decided to enroll full-time at the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business, and he earned his MBA. After graduation, Jeff was recruited by AT&T and moved to the Garden State of New Jersey, where he worked in marketing and product strategy at AT&T. After a few years, he decided to follow his parents, grandfather, and great-grandfather's footsteps and start his own business. Today, Jeff is the founder, president, and CEO of First Person. First Person provides pre-hire assessment tools and services to help companies that hire customer contact employees improve the chances of making the right hiring decision. So, Jeff, first, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm glad to have you, Jeff. Now, I've given our listeners a little bit about you, but could you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you better?
Sure, Jim. Happy to do so. So I think, put aside having my own company and working in that, which is obviously a great passion of mine, I've really become quite interested in education and particularly teachers and how teachers are evaluated and the quality of teaching in schools. Obviously, having 3 kids that are all school age, probably is a big contributor to that. So I'm really interested in what's going on in the world around teaching, not only here in the United States, but also, what else is happening outside the U.S. and other countries and how they approach education.
I had just had the opportunity to, prior to you and I speaking, meet with a professor who is also on that same journey and has that same passion right now. It is amazing to see how much change, focus, and passion is being put into education reform, and really creating that next generation of both workforce and leaders, and really community leaders and citizens. So, what are the things that you're working on right now specifically that are really giving you energy towards that particular pursuit?
Sure. So I think the first thing that I've been doing a lot of research and trying to understand, and then even taking it back to the schools that my kids are involved in, is just trying to understand, for example, Jim, what is a good teacher versus a not so good teacher, and what does that mean to an individual student? There's research out of Stanford, a guy named Eric. I probably won't pronounce his last name correctly. I think it's Hudasek, but he's done a lot of research showing that, for example, a teacher who is above average can accelerate the learning path in the classroom by 6 months or so, versus a teacher who is maybe below average or isn't quite up to the capabilities of delivering education, let's say, could actually have a regression of 6 months, right? So think of, for example, inner city schools and kids that are in those environments because they don't have any choice. You have 5 years of bad teachers. Well, now that's 30 months that they're potentially behind. And so no wonder, once those kids reach the workforce, that they're not, they have a challenge finding jobs, they have a challenge, putting food on the table, and obviously the implications to society, because of that. So, so just kind of focusing on that teacher question, and how do schools identify teachers who can be the right fit for the classroom and capable of actually delivering at least average, if not above average, in the classroom. And obviously there's a lot of things that go into that, Jim, but that kind of links to what I do day to day. And so there was kind of a natural gravitation or easy path for me to look at that and really get excited about it.
Well, I think that, as listening to you give that answer, and thanks for sharing, is, some of the work that you've been doing in regards to identifying the right behaviors, the right characteristics, of people who actually can serve others well. Teachers kind of, like you were saying, easily fall into that servitude or supporting or helping others type of realm, and being able to identify their characteristics is important. Well, definitely this is a huge issue, and it is one that, that we can't afford to lose in a lot of different ways. And so, I hope that you continue to find the passion and the drive to do that. One of the ways that we find drive and passion here on the Fast Leader Show is that we lean on leadership quotes. Leadership quotes can give us that extra, oomph and that extra, focus to help continue on and persevere and get past. Are there some quotes for you that do just that? Can you share them?
Sure, Jim. There's one in particular that I came across early on after I started First Person, and then found it to be really helpful. So it's from Jack Welch, so I'm sure he has, it's one of many business quotes that he's probably contributed over the years. So it's face reality as it is, not as it was or as you wish it to be. And so I really think that, when whether you're leading a company or you're in a volunteering capacity or whatever it might be, that those to me that's really instrumental, because a lot of people, and certainly I was early on was one to go this route, is you envision how you want things and you kind of pretend away that that's what it is, but that's not reality, right? And in order to improve your own reality of whether that's your company's growth or health or at home, or a group you might be involved with or volunteering, or even the example you're talking about, right, teaching, and how do you face the reality of what that environment is today, but what can you do to move it forward? I think unless you're grounded in that reality, and not thinking about how it may have been in the past or how you wish it was, you start with where it is today, the reality of what it is, and then you can work towards helping, lead the organization or being a contributor to others that are leading the organization to get where you want to go. And of course, that means setting goals and such, and understanding what that vision ultimately is. But I really found that to be a very practical and helpful quote when I came across it many, many years ago.
Yeah, and I would dare to say that oftentimes we, have to essentially, sip from that saucer of reality and make sure that we do focus in on, what we have to do with what we currently have in front of us. And oftentimes, we talk about getting over the hump on the Fast Leader shows, because that's our dose of reality to say, okay, I've got to move forward with whatever this particular hump is and get over it. And there's going to be learnings from that. And oftentimes there are things that we carry with us, for the rest of our lives. Is there a hump that you remember that you had to get over and that it actually, made you be a better person, better leader? Can you share that story with us?
I sure can, Jim. Yeah. So this goes way back, actually, back to my college days, as a matter of fact. And I was, a little hesitant to say, well, is there anything in college that really makes us who we are? And I think, obviously, the education and classes you take and people you meet are part of that. But to me, college was also a broader experience. And so at Northwestern, I belonged to a fraternity, Phi Kappa Psi, and while most people think of the fraternity environment, well, it's parties and a lot of fun, and certainly, there was that. But more importantly, Phi Psi was a historical chapter at Northwestern, one of the early chapters there, and we had a great legacy. But when I was there in the late '80s, we had a lot of problems. The house was falling apart, the chapter house was falling apart. There wasn't a lot of money. Our alumni group was non-existent. And I was elected as the Alumni Chair, which, probably in most cases is kind of you have a meeting once a year and you go to homecoming, right? And that's all you really need to do. But I got kind of excited about, the needs that the chapter house had, and thinking through, what are we going to do to fix this? And because I was only a sophomore, so I said, a couple more years left there, and it was really a problem for us. And so my role as alumni chairman, I was thinking, well, there's got to be a way for us to maybe get some more alums involved. I felt creating a broader network. Fortunately, Northwestern's in Evanston, Illinois, there's a lot of our alumni were very local, to the North Shore, Chicago, to the city itself, to the other suburbs. So we were geographically in a good position, but I really felt that there was a challenge that none of the undergraduates there really cared what was going to happen. That everybody's going to leave in 2 to 3 years, and we obviously had not done a good job of involving the alumni base back into the house and getting them to campus to visit with us. So for better or for worse, I took it upon myself to figure out a way, how can we get alumni back involved? And I had met this older gentleman who had graduated from Northwestern, was a Phi Psi, call him Brother Al, and he had this little pancake business. And what he did is he brought in some equipment and set it up, and he made pancakes, and he'd do these pancake breakfasts. And I thought, well, this is maybe an interesting idea, a hook, a gimmick, maybe to get host a breakfast, organize it, and bring alumni back to that. And I knew I could get the other, undergraduate members, my fraternity brothers there, because we did it like on a Saturday, Sunday, where everybody wants to eat breakfast, right? The kitchen's closed and they've been out probably all night and everybody's getting hungry. So bottom line is I set up to kind of organized his first breakfast and worked the phones and got about 10 or 15 alumni there, and then we did another one and that grew, and we did a third one and that grew, and ultimately we had 30, 40, 50 people that had come to these breakfasts at various points. And from there I was able to get kind of a small advisory group put together, and that helped us get a little more framework around more higher level organization, and that ultimately eventually a year or two later led to a more detailed fundraising campaign. We actually ultimately put about $1 million back into the house, and we raised that through working with the university and through alumni donations. But what I learned, Jim, is coming back to the kind of the hump and the leadership example, was that one is at that time I had little confidence in myself around leading others, especially when you think of your fraternity brothers who there's a wide range of interests and thoughts around what should be done, and people kind of live their own lives about their studies, and we collect together, and there's certain common bonds that we had, but I really was not that confident in how I could lead that group. And this was an opportunity to step in and actually try to help the house to be better and try to create a better environment for next year and the year beyond. And I think with that, I also learned about perseverance. So this took a long time to put together, but once I was able to I think show that I was committed to it and it could create results, that focus helped to get buy-in from others, with other chapter members and such. And it also helped me understand how to be creative, and who a pancake breakfast sounds kind of ridiculous, right? but it actually was a nice little gimmick that worked, and it was different, and it worked to get the alumni's attention and get them back. And so that epiphany was really about setting goals and working to them, but also how to communicate them over and over and over with that message, and understand how to get other people to kind of get bought into it. And that really helped me, I think, maybe step outside of my shell, is being 18, 19 years old. And that experience, I think, ultimately helped set up, eventually when I decided to leave AT&T and start my own company.
That's a great story, Jeff. I mean, for me, when you were telling it, I started coming back to the quote that you said that you like from Jack Welch, because to me, it was all summarized in what you just shared with us in regards to the hump that you got over with going through that fundraising process and getting so many of those different, stakeholders involved with helping to, bring that house back to, a better sound footing and, being in better shape. I mean, that's awesome. I think a lot of times it seems that folks want to have that quick turnaround, that short, injection, that that quick win, that silver bullet, all of those things that we're told and are glamorized in, news and entertainment and all of that. But, at 18, 19, especially 19-year-olds of today, that's exactly what they think, how everything happens. But, what was different for you in thinking that, okay, start this idea, but then let's expand it. Because that's what you kept doing and you didn't stop. I mean, what were some of the things that you were thinking about that next step? How did you do that?
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I just to make a quick comment about, you're thinking of today in the world, everything is so quick, right? If you don't respond to your email immediately or everything with social media, it certainly drives I think a very responsive world versus taking a step back and thinking things through and having the ability to be patient and work through things. I do get concerned sometimes that we lose that. And I think to me, ultimately, that's where growth and opportunities do come from that. And so going back to that, your question and the experience back at Northwestern was, really it came down, I think, to understanding that if we don't do this, the repercussions could be dramatic, right? The university could come in and say, look, your house doesn't meet certain code things, and if it doesn't meet certain code things, we're gonna have to shut it down, or you guys can't live here anymore, and that would displace 40 or so people that lived in the house. We wouldn't be able to serve meals there, and all of a sudden, where that physical structure becomes a gathering, point for everybody, it doesn't exist anymore, right? We can't go there, we can't use it, and that was going to be a challenge. So that was one thing. Getting back to the reality of what could happen is if you kind of played it forward a little bit, right? In terms of potential scenarios. The other thing I thought is that. For whatever reason, I thought, well, if nobody else is going to do it, or if nobody is thinking about it, then this is, the things that at a higher level that the Phi Psi, talks about at the national level and such, and serving others and being a contributor to your community. And I certainly didn't want to be a member of a chapter that was the one that, kind of went out of business, so to speak. And so I think, kind of taking that approach and coming back to, I didn't really talk about that initially. It was more of, people were kind of making fun of me about, oh, we're going to do a pancake breakfast and look at what Jeff's doing. And okay, fine. You live with that. But the first one, once it was partially successful, and then the second one was even more successful, and just kind of sticking to that, and then starting to talk about, look at, this is where this could go. We get more alumni here. They're going to help us. They were here in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and they don't want to see that legacy go away, and they want to, help and make sure that the chapter continues forward. And so starting to kind of resonate there, craft that message, give myself probably more credit, today than maybe back then, but craft that message that, look, we need to do something, and the alumni are the ones who are going to help us get there, because certainly as undergrads, we don't have that, and the university isn't going to care one way or the other. So not only did we need the alumni because of the financial opportunity they could bring, but also because they can intervene at the university level and those types of things. So just kind of building on that, message and building on that buy-in and continuing to get, suggestions as more and more of the chapter members got involved. And then once the alumni got involved, they had even more ideas and we got things organized. So it really was just kind of, I think, you think about that service component, and it's in my sense, you always have to be looking forward, right? You always have to be thinking about I accomplished this today. That's great, but what needs to happen tomorrow to make today even better, if that makes sense.
Oh, it definitely does. And I appreciate you sharing that story. And I think it makes me even more excited about what you were talking about, your current passion around the education, efforts and all of the things that you're doing there, that with the success that you had here, I know you're going to make a big impact on education. I appreciate that. So if you were to think about, what you've been doing with the education piece, that story that you had shared about creating that movement, what is one piece of advice that you would give to the Fast Leader Legion?
Sure. I think, this was related a little more to the business side of things, but I think it could be expanded to anything. So, when I first started up First Person, back in the late 90s, I had obviously some older individuals who had been around the block, so to speak, and the advice they gave me, which I've took to heart and really think a lot of is hire smart people, give them what they need, but then get out of their way. And you think about what does that mean? Well, you obviously empower. You create an environment to empower people. Again, whether that's in a business like you and I are involved in, or volunteer work, and everybody's there. Kind of just because they want to be there and want to try to help. Understanding what are the gifts that each person has, and then giving them what they need to capitalize on those gifts, but then getting kind of out of their way and let them do their thing. Now, having said that, I think it's important, that there's a lot of work around communication, the vision, and what are we trying to achieve, so you don't have everybody walking off their own individual path, and then the organization doesn't move forward.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that piece of advice. Now, we talked about First Person and the work that you do at First Person and helping companies select those right people, and hopefully they're getting out of their way once they do that. But what is really exciting you about some of the work that you're doing at First Person right now?
Sure. There's a couple things, Jim. I think, one is just the application of technology. So, what we do, we're helping organizations hire people, and we do that because we help them define the job. We help them create a model that can be measured. So in other words, as a candidate comes through a process, it can be measured and then evaluated against some type of performance outcome. So technology today is real exciting and creating a lot of passion on our side, because the growth of the ability to use different types of web-based tools, the ability to interact with data sources and do that in kind of a real time has enabled us to do so much more around serving our customers and helping them do things not only at a lower cost, but on a faster delivery standpoint. At the same time, back to the candidate and the candidate experience, we're able to create a more engaging, a more immersive experience. So it's fun for the candidate. So, for example, thinking about creating like simulations or kind of game-like tools that a candidate can go through. That's not only creates a much more engaging process for the candidate. It helps maybe the customer promote their brand in a better way. But it's also really predictive of performance. And so you kind of technology is really enabling us to do a lot of things. And, even 3 or 5 years ago, we couldn't do that because of either cost implications or development, timelines, those types of things. So that's one thing. And then the data, it already talks about, analytics and how to use data and so on and so forth. And I realize it's a big buzzword and overused quite a bit. But there are some really neat opportunities to pull various data back to the process. And so where, human resources, recruiting, hiring, 10 years ago, it was kind of a feel-good thing. Today, there's an opportunity to actually quantify the hiring decision, put a financial model around that. And so HR can go back to the executive team and talk about, look, we're making these investments in how people are hired. And as a result, we're contributing to business outcomes in a way that, we're driving retention from an improvement perspective. We're hiring people who are better at, delivering that customer experience. Our CSAT scores are improving, or our resolutions improving, and now all of a sudden it's becoming an opportunity for that chief human resources officer to be an equal at that C-suite level, as the CTO or operational leaders and such, because they can demonstrate a talent strategy in a quantifiable way. And it's great to be part of that. It's exciting to be part of that, and I think for us in particular, the work we're able to do with our customers and to see how that creates real results is really powerful for us.
Well, the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Jeff, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Jeff Furst, are you ready to hoedown?
I am.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
The thing that's holding me back, Jim, is focusing on clear goals. So instead of working on clear goals and strategy, I spend too much time working in them, and got to get away from that.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
I think it's something that somebody told me. I think it's actually a quote from Mark Twain, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, if you find yourself, if everybody agrees with you, then something's wrong. And so it's time to take a step back and find out what really is going on and think through all the angles. So be careful of what I was told is be careful of universal agreement and look for the counterintuitive argument there.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Actually, CrossFit and working out, believe it or not. So I find that just with the day to day and the amount of stress that gets kind of incorporating the business and being responsive and balancing work and family, so the ability to kind of escape for 30 minutes to an hour and exercise really helps me clear my mind and kind of refocus on goals and such. So I find that I'm a better person because of that.
What do you feel is one of your best resources that helps you lead in business or life?
So I love reading. I think, in particular, I find that, during the introduction, you mentioned the economic history classes. I love reading about business people or historical figures and what they did. And so, for example, one book is Titan by Ron Chernow, which is about J.D. Rockefeller and talks about how he grew up and built his business. And, there are things maybe you don't agree with in that, but a reader might not. But the lessons learned from his kind of perseverance and understanding the strategy of the oil business and gas business, how he got there. So I just love that historical context because I think those lessons never die. They can be applied in any time frame. Even today with the technology we have, there's a lot of parallels.
Okay, Fast Leader listeners, you can find links to other bonus material and that book on the show notes page, which you'll be able to find at fastleader.net/Jeff Furst. Okay, Jeff, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you've been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills you have back with you, but you can't take everything. You can only just take one thing. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you and why?
So Jim, a piece of knowledge. So the thing I would, if I go back to 25 and have this piece of knowledge and kind of start from there, be control my own destiny and not let others control it for you. So the back channel there is, decisions that I made post 25 where, maybe we let other partners or other people have too much influence over what we were doing versus controlling ourselves. This is from a company perspective, would have made a huge difference. And so if I go back and take that one piece of knowledge in terms of controlling my destiny and not letting others influence it as much, then I think my path forward would have been very different.
Jeff, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader listeners how they can connect with you?
Sure. You can connect with me on Twitter at FurstJeff or on LinkedIn, or my email address is jeff.furst@firstperson.com.
Jeff Furst, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Woo-hoo! Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.